Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholes. Today we have another Slavic tale, and this one comes from southern Russia. It's a story that we've heard a variant of before. This and Friday's Tale are going to be stories that seem quite familiar. But there is an interesting twist in there. This story is The Beautiful Damsel and the Wicked Old Woman. In the woods stood a cottage. In it lived a man and his wife, but they had no children. Well, they went on a pilgrimage to beseech God to give them a child. God gave them a daughter. She grew and prospered. The prince about that time rode up to the place as he was out hunting, and sent his attendant, saying, "Be so good as to go and ask for a draught of water at yon cottage." The attendant went to ask for the water just when the girl was weeping, and pearls were rolling down from her eyes. Her mother pacified her, she began to smile, and all manner of flowers bloomed. The servant went out and said, "Prince, I have seen a little girl. When she weeps, pearls roll down, and when she smiles, all manner of flowers bloom." The prince went into the cottage and began to tease the child to make her cry. She cried, and pearls rolled down. He then begged her mother to pacify her. When she smiled, the prince saw that all manner of flowers bloomed. The girl continued to grow, and the prince always rode around that way when he was hunting. Well, she grew up. The prince said, "Old man, give me your daughter to wife." She now embroidered handkerchiefs with eagles, but the emperor said, "Where have your wits gone to, my son, that you want to take a peasant girl to wife?" Then the prince took one of the handkerchiefs that she had embroidered and carried it to the emperor, whereat the emperor clapped his hands. "Marry," said he, "my son, marry." Then he conducted her homeward, but in his suite was an old woman who had her daughter with her. Well, as they were on their way, the prince stopped to shoot something, and the old woman took everything from the damsel, scooped out her eyes, and thrust her into a cavern in the ground, and dressed her daughter in her apparel. So the prince took her to wife without recognizing her. But round the cavern there grew a multitude of bushes. An old man came to gather brushwood. The girl, the damsel, was sitting in the cavern, and in front of her a heap of pearls, which she had wept as she sat, but she had no eyes. "Take me," said she, "kind old man, and pick up this jewelry here." Well, the old man took her, collected the jewelry, and led her home. At the old man's there were no children, but there was an old woman. She, the damsel, said, "Collect the jewelry in a bag and carry it to the town for sale. And if a certain old woman meets you, then don't sell to her, but say, 'Give what you have about you.'" Well, he carried it to the town and met the old woman. The old woman said, "Sell me the jewelry." "Purchase." "How much for it?" "Give what you have about you." She gave him an eye. Then the damsel began with one eye to embroider a handkerchief. Again, the old man carried jewelry to the town. The old woman again said, "Old man, sell me the jewelry." "Purchase." "How much for it?" "Give what you have about you." She gave him the other eye. Then the damsel began to embroider still more beautifully. The old man said, "There's a dinner at the emperor's." The damsel said to him, "Go, kind old man, to the dinner and take a jug, that you may beg some soup for me." She also tied a handkerchief of her own sewing on the old man's neck. When the prince espied the handkerchief on the old man's neck, he cried, Whence have you come, old man?" "From the farm yonder, prince." And there is also a damsel living at my house. Be so kind as to give her something in this jug." "But, old man, where did you get that handkerchief?" "I found a damsel in a cavern in the ground, and she embroidered it." The prince at once recognized it by the embroidery. "'Tis she! 'Tis she!" But the old woman's daughter was packed off to tend swine. And that's all. And that is the Russian tale of the beautiful damsel and the wicked old woman. And this story should seem very familiar. The crying jewels and, well, usually speaking jewels and speaking snakes is a fairly common old trope. But in this version of the story, there's two things that I really like. And the first is that the prince waits until the damsel grows up, which doesn't always happen, which is not right. But the other is how matter-of-factly the old man says, "Well, no, I found a damsel in a cavern in the ground, and she made it." Like this is something that is normal and should always happen, which we know it is not. This is Dan Scholes for the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you'd like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget that if you'd like to help support the podcast, you can head over to patreon.com/folktaleproject, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get early access to every story told, and a little something from me. As always, thank you so much for listening.